Hello, everybody. Cricket Badger podcast time. And we're talking today about the future of red ball cricket. There's been the article in the Telegraph suggesting that there might be a 12-team Premier League. There's been the ECB saying, sort of distancing themselves from that to some degree, to say that we haven't actually discussed it yet. Our report and our investigations and our research hasn't been completed. But I am concerned, and my guest today is concerned. We've been concerned for some time. And the reason we're just about 4 minutes past 2 rather than the 2 p.m. promised was because we were nattering away. So I'll bring her on anyway to introduce her properly. Annie Chave, who is the, I hadn't never had you on the podcast, Annie, despite our frequent conversations. You were on just a few weeks ago getting inducted into the Badger Set of Fame. But Annie produces this wonderful magazine. If you look on the inside cover, I'm actually listed, I think, as the, was it 12th Badger is my title now, because I was part of the process of bringing it in to start with, but I've done absolutely nothing with it for the last year or so. So Annie is very much in control of that. But Annie, our association started when we were concerned about the 100, and we got together and I'd set up at oppose the 100, and because I was scared and worried and concerned about the impact on the 18 counties in the county game. And then obviously we've now got another round of stuff and shenanigans in the pipeline in terms of how the ECB is going to react to England's woeful performances in the Test arena and how that reflects on the county game. And all of a sudden we've got these various things muted in terms of how red ball is going to be changed and how the county championship is going to be changed. We're going to have 12 teams. I've seen, at least, I mean, one good thing is that everybody's talking about it, which is a good thing for county cricket. But it's a cause for concern, Annie, I would suggest.
It is a cause for concern. I mean, I know we're called scaremongers, and we're actually being a bit critical a lot of the time, and you do fall into that category of being scaremonger then. But there are a lot of things to be concerned about, and least of all this decision, whether it's a real one or not, about going down to 12 counties, which, to be fair, James, you and I have for years now been worried that this was that the 100 was the precursor to this. So yeah, I think there is concern. There's real concern because there's a huge body of people that are saying 12 counties, 12 counties, and they're proper big names, and they've got real concerns too. But you and I both don't think that this is the way to go forward. So
I've always said, I'm far older than I look, but I grew up. That's maybe another debate for another podcast. But I grew up watching. My first game was down at Canterbury, watching Kent, who were possibly one of the vulnerable counties. I've spent many a happy day going around county game, both in the media and as a supporter, sitting at New Road in Worcester, one of the most beautiful grounds in the country. You go to, Leicestershire, Grace Road, you've got Northants, Wanted Road, you've got some counties who are deemed to be small, in inverted commas, who have a proud history, who have produced England players, who have supporters that love those clubs. It's just beyond me. I saw a tweet the other day. I can't remember who it was, so I apologise. But the tweet was along the lines of, before we start hacking the game apart, we should actually look at what we've got. Yep. And I think that's probably the best starting place, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I've been saying. We've got these massive infrastructures. We've got all these, these 18 big counties, and like I went to Sussex last week. They're doing so much building work around there. There's so much money gone into all that area. They've got such proud and strong supporters doing so much good work. And everywhere you see this, and every county has their really, really loyal fans, and all these people have been working so bloody hard. And then there's this decision to say, well, let's leave this. We'll cut down the 6 of them, and we'll just have 12 because we want elite players. But there's how do these 6 survive, and what happens to those 6 grounds, and not just the ground, the communities, the cities that they're all in. There's so much to think about. It's not a straightforward decision at all, and there's there's massive amounts of hoops that they'll need to jump through to change all of that.
One of the wonderful things I think about having 18 counties that are to some degree spread around the country is that I've described it in the past as kind of spreading the tentacles of the game. I mean, you're down in Somerset. If Somerset didn't exist, for sake of argument, if a young player is growing up in Cornwall, where do they go? I mean, Somerset's far enough, isn't it? If they decided that Durham are the first in, first out, last in, first out kind of thing, who growing up in Northumberland is going to play cricket? Mark Wood, for example, might be lost to the game because he'd choose something else to do because he can't drive to Headingley or whatever to play.
You're shrinking the game. You're shrinking the game.
And off the back of Azim Rafiq and lack of inclusivity in the game in terms of race, in terms of the criticism of a lot of private or public, I can never work out which one it is, private or public, schoolboys playing county cricket, as and not enough state school kids coming through.
Who are the elite playing the elite?
Yeah, exactly. If you are shrinking the game, where is the opportunity?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And what are so if this did happen, if it's all up in the air, of course, because it never was in the plan at all. So the three main ones would obviously be Derbyshire, Leicestershire, and Northants. They must be. They would be the three in.
They're always the first on anybody's list, aren't they? Yeah.
And then who do you decide out of? How do you decide out of Essex, Sussex, Gloucestershire, Worcestershire, Kent, Durham, Somerset? How do you decide? And what bitter battles? What background knife stabbing will there be? It doesn't bear thinking about. It really doesn't.
And it's not just. It's very easy to say, "Oh, let's get rid of 6 counties." You can say that sentence very quickly, can't you?
Oh yeah.
But you've got the infrastructures, you've got the staff that work there, you've got the players that play there, you've got the supporters that we've mentioned before. There are jobs being lost in that. There are people that are who are working in cricket and loving it, all of a sudden getting told, well, your county doesn't exist anymore. And as a minor county, because you would imagine they'd stay in business, but as a minor county potentially.
How would they survive without
Exactly.
They wouldn't have the proper membership. They wouldn't get the money from the test. Players going to the test teams. There's lots of things that they would lose. And you're supposed to be carrying on keeping this big stadium going. Or, in some cases quite big. So I think it's going to be very dangerous. You're saying there's no future for you, really.
Yeah, you're just basically saying nasty, aren't you? You can go off and do whatever you like, but we're not going to support you anymore, effectively.
How do you keep a sport going if you don't have also the whole talk about it being, it's not going up and down, no progression. How do you keep a sport going if that is the case?
Talking about opportunity, though, Annie, I've mentioned inclusivity. I mentioned state school kids. We, on the one hand, we're talking about growing the game and making it, extending its reach and getting more people interested in it, both supporters and players. And then on the other hand, we're talking about shrinking it. Those two things just don't mesh, do they?
No, they absolutely don't. I guess what they're thinking is they're going to grow it by increasing the white ball, but you're not increasing the number of places you can see it.
Well, I mean, we had all that discussion with the 100, didn't we, about people saying, well, I live in I don't know, Somerset, so I can't get to Cardiff, or I don't want to go to Cardiff. It's too far. It's going to cost me too much money. And that same situation happens all over the country. 8 centres of the 100, 2 of them are in London. If there was somebody very early on said to me, I live in Brighton. If I'm taking my wife and 2 children to watch a 100 match in Surrey at the Oval, that's costing me, I can't remember how much he said it was now. It was certainly in the hundreds of pounds to just get there and back. And if you're doing that 6 or 7 times during a 100 tournament, that's a family holiday, isn't it? You're asking people to contribute far more than they're contributing now in terms of attending. And people, if you're saying people aren't attending now and you're making it harder for them, what do you expect to happen?
Yeah. I mean, we mustn't forget that in all this time that COVID has hit, and it's very different. It's been very different. One of the things I was talking to fans about in Sussex was that you couldn't just walk up last year. You had to book your seats in advance, and that's very difficult for lots of people. So and you get out of the habit of going, because it is a habit. It's a massive habit, and it's really, really important to people. But you do get out of the habit, and that is happening. And what you're finding now is that partly because of COVID, but also because the counties that aren't hosting the 100 need to claw back money. You're finding that membership's going up. You're finding that games are costing more, and that is a really difficult situation for some of them.
I'm going to get to people's questions in a second. They're flying in on the live message board, and we've got a few on Twitter as well that have come in earlier. Just one final point in terms of opportunity. At the moment, 18 counties, 11 shirts in the championship each week, or when they play, 198 shirts in total. Of course, some of those go to overseas players. You take that down to 12 times 11, or even 8 times 11 if we get down to the 100 levels. There are far less shirts to go around. So what is, in terms of a youngster seeing what they can achieve and thinking, well, I like cricket, I like football, I play a bit of golf, I like to sit on my computer game. At the moment, you can just about see a pathway through to being a professional cricketer if you've got some degree of talent. If you reduce those shirts by potentially half each week, it's going to be harder for people to even see it as an option, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not just shirts, James. By taking down to 12 teams, you're reducing the amount of games.
Yeah.
In our country, there's weather affected games quite a lot. If you're then cutting those down, I mean, at the moment,
just Nottinghamshire's press day yesterday when it snowed on them. We're seeing warm up games. Abby Slade. I was having a little conversation with her on Twitter this morning where she was saying, how can you call these warm up games when they're freezing to death out there playing cricket in the snow? I saw Mike Selvey tweeted that when he played, usually played his first game of the season around about, I think he said something around about in the 20s of April, and the final game started maybe in the first week in September.
Yeah.
And now we're added 2 months to the season, and we're getting weather like this, aren't we?
That's right. But didn't they used to have a chase to see who got to 1,000 runs before the end of May? I mean, it's not a great race these days.
You play half the season by the time May's finished. Right, let's get through some of these questions. Spiked is saying it's making an elitist sport more elite if you get rid of counties. So that's basically what you said earlier, Annie. Jonathan Young says, good afternoon, James and Annie. Good afternoon, Jonathan. Thanks for watching. Ruben says, England must find this. I'm a bit like Anchorman sometimes. I don't know if you've ever seen the film Anchorman. I see things, I read them, and I never get the chance to actually kind of look at these before. So I'm taking my life in my hands here, Ruben, by reading this out. England must find a system which will produce young players who have good techniques to be able to withstand the vigors of international cricket. Now, most are not ready to play at a high level. That brings me back. Thank you, Ruben, for that question. That brings me back, or that comment, to what I said on Twitter the other day. County cricket is twofold. And, that's not just me saying that. I've spoken to coaches and people around the game. There's two purposes of county cricket. A is to obviously produce elite players who go on and play international cricket. But B, it's to be a county cricket team and to play first-class cricket. To play first-class cricket, you have to be bloody good. And it's getting your county cap or even playing a handful of first-class games is an achievement. It's not something to be rubbished. And for Kevin Peterson to call a lot of those guys riffraff is beyond me.
Yeah. Well, don't get me started on that. But absolutely. And when I interviewed Angus Fraser just the other month, one of the things he was saying is to be a coach or a managing director of a cricket ground, that it is twofold. Absolutely. One of the things, you are desperate to get silverware for your county, but you're also trying to produce England cricketers. But I think too often that getting silverware for your county is discredited by so many people, and I think that's a really, really sad and dangerous thing to do, because it really bloody matters to win the championship. I was talking to Tom Abel last night how important it was to him to win the championship. It absolutely is. I mean, of course, Somerset it would be, but
it might be important to you, Annie. I prefer to see Yorkshire win it, but anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, just to break away from that, Tom Abel, England captain? Question mark.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want him to be, of course, but I'm sure he'd be very happy to be. And you know, he's a good captain, and
Mm.
he's a very talented batsman and a underrated bowler as well. So he would, yeah. I mean, why not? Except I want him down in Somerset.
Did you see my tweet? My tweet the other day. A friend of mine phoned me actually one morning, very excited that he just realised that Harry Kane as England football captain, Tom Abel as England cricket captain. It would be Kane and Abel as the two leaders of our nation's premier sides, which would be quite cool, wouldn't it?
Well, absolutely.
Jonathan Young, hello to you, Jonathan, regular viewer and listener. Reading Bumble's article in the Mail. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but it's worth a read, actually. He says a lot of sensible stuff in there. He says, I can't work out if he's serious, whether it's an April Fool. It's not an April Fool, that, Annie, to me. I've read that, and there's a lot of, you don't do an April Fool where it's a sensible interview, do you? And there's a lot of...
lots of things he said to me before. Absolutely. It's just that now he isn't tied to Sky. He has more leeway to say what he wants. And, you know, he's a 75-year-old man. He has the right to say a lot of things about cricket, and people saying that he's trying to get into cricket again by saying these things, I don't believe that. I really don't. I don't think he would want to.
I mean, he's worth listening to on a lot of stuff. He's done most jobs in the game, hasn't he? As Bumble. I mean, it does strike me as a little bit illustrative of, there's too many T's in that, I think, of the hundreds and how it's covered, in that when people are in the hundreds and they're getting paid by the hundred, they support it very vocally. Bumble's now an example of somebody that's kind of removed from that bubble and all of a sudden doesn't see it as being quite so exciting.
Well, he sees it as the danger it is, and you know, there are positive things about the 100. I have to keep saying that, and I do believe there are some positive things about the 100. But it isn't a positive thing for England domestic cricket and county cricket. And the ECB at the start, they were saying this: we're doing this to save county cricket, and by saving county cricket, there's a discussion that they might be cutting county cricket. Doesn't seem like a save to me.
No, absolutely not. Ruben's back in. He says, look at the IPL this year, where we are seeing unknown young players below 21 able to bowl and bat well against the established domestic and international players without any fear, ready to go further. I mean, the IPL is a great competition, Ruben. I love the IPL, and it's it does bridge the gap between international and domestic cricket, because the IPL is domestic cricket, because they play in front of big crowds, and they're ready for the step up because they have that pressure. The only thing with that, Annie, though, I've seen a lot of people say, well, New Zealand do this and India do this, and it's different, isn't it? Because you've got to do what's right for your own country. The weather's different in this country. The demographics, the population centres are different in England, and we already have an established 150, 160-year-old county championship game, which has served its purpose thus far. Nobody was moaning about it in 2005. Nobody was moaning about it when England got to #1 in the world in the Test arena. Nobody was indeed moaning about it in 2019 when England lifted the World Cup. It has produced some very good players, hasn't it?
And every county has, they absolutely have.
And Leicestershire produced them for Nottinghamshire, but that's,
Yeah, but I mean, if we go on to Leicestershire, because they are doing amazing things in the communities around them. Sean Jarvis is doing so much good work. He's really trying to bring county cricket to the forefront. I've had lots of conversations with him, and I think he's doing sterling work. And as for Paul Nixon, you couldn't get a more enthusiastic and so into his cricket, like in county cricket, I don't think.
I saw Sean, he tweeted a few weeks back. He has done at Leicestershire what I tried to do at Yorkshire and didn't get the funding or anybody on side, because I wanted to put posters in pubs and libraries and stuff like that with the fixtures on them. And because I always think, Annie, that when you are talking about the championship and Fred and Jim are down the pub having a game of pool and a pint and saying, "Oh, I'm off next week. What should we do?" You need to stick it in front of their faces so it's an option, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a friend who has just moved to Taunton. She never sees cricket whatsoever. She's never been to a game. She's really excited about coming now because I can tell her when it's on. but it's only because I can tell her when it's on and she's moved here that she's going to do it. If it's up there and out there in posters, it's not, there are so many things that
Yeah.
we should be and could be doing to advertise it.
Another thing I always think is that the I had to come back to that, but Spike's come back in and he says, could we not increase the county championship? I've seen a few people say that we need to spread it wider.
Chave said that as well. He said,
I mean, the only thing with that, Annie, is when you're talking about minor counties or national counties, as I think they're called these days, if you're asking a national county to become professional in the first class structure and then get relegated back and become a yo-yo club between them, how do you can't facilitate that, because there is so much more required to be a first class county playing the county championship than being a national county. But Spike's suggesting Scotland, Netherlands, and a few of those kind of teams playing it.
There's some really great cricket played in Scotland. I mean, really, really top quality. I don't know about Netherlands, but I mean, they've produced some pretty good cricketers, let's face it. So
I'm going to get back into some of the questions we got on Twitter as well. So I'll come back to your live questions in a second. Ted says, and Ted's very nice to us, Annie, he says, James and Annie, you two have done as much as anyone to promote the 18 counties. Is it now inevitable that some will disappear? Well, I mean, what's your view on that? If we scroll forward 10 years, Annie, will we have 18 counties?
Sadly, I don't think we will, James. I really, really don't think we will. If it was up to me, I would just suggest so many ways we could do, advertising, getting people, schools in, papering the ground. I said ages ago that we should paper T20 games and say, right, anyone who's here tonight, come round to the championship. If you do that, you get the odd people that will come and then go, actually, I really enjoyed this. Just the odd few, and it adds more to people and adds more. I think we will be losing counties because there's too many people that want elite cricket and elite cricket playing each other.
It is one of the dangers, Annie, that the pot that's there at the moment, if you divide it by 18, it's less each than if you don't divide it by 12, isn't it?
That is the main thing, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
It all comes down to Wonga in the end, doesn't it?
I'm not very good at maths, so but even I can see that,
Well, that Annie was why I phrased the question the way I did, because I didn't want to try and do any maths at all. Chris has been on Twitter. Thank you, Chris. He says, all I hope is that county chairman stroke chief executives for once don't just fall in line with the ECB demands and stand up for the county game, because otherwise I can see the county I love and others gone, and the fans will go too, as will a lot of local clubs who rely on them. And that's another thing, isn't it? I mean, there's another question that goes on to that a little bit, but it's how these clubs work in their local communities. They work with local clubs, they work with charities, they work with all kinds of community organisations. If you take that hub, say Leicestershire disappeared, all of that good work that you can do in Leicester as a city with its multicultural, wonderful city.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that disappears potentially.
Yeah, but I mean, what have we got? We've got 18 white, middle class, older men as ECB. As chief execs at the counties, haven't we? I mean, is there anyone that isn't?
Well, it was pointed out to me the other day, and I tweeted it, but nobody. When you do a sensible tweet that you hope actually gets read, nobody actually reads it. When you do a stupid throwaway one, it gets retweeted galore. But somebody pointed out to me the other day that the boards at county level don't get paid; it's voluntary. And what that tends to do is it brings in successful white middle class men who have time on their hands potentially, rather than women with families or that's all stereotypical, I know, but that it does tend to go down that route. So you therefore end up with a board that is predominantly white middle class, successful, moneyed people who see the world in that way.
Yeah, and see it as a business. And of course, I'm a lot of people have said to me, you're just too passionate about the game and you're not thinking business type. Of course you have to think more business like. I know that, but I think there must be some sort of middle ground, because every county seems to have businessmen, like you say, making business decisions, and Sean is bucking the trend a little bit there. He's saying, no, I want to I want to do a county day. I want to do a free to everybody county day. I want to do this, that, and I think it's making inroads, and I really do. And I've spoken to Gordon at Somerset, and he's really up for ideas, and he's trying to think. I hate that phrase, think outside the box. What
Blue
can you
sky
do?
thinking on a snowy day.
I,
I do think that you got to make it. The club is important to the communities, and the club should see themselves as that. I mean, I've said during the racism thing that all too often when I was at Yorkshire, the club saw the ethnic populations of Bradford and West Yorkshire and beyond and Leeds of being ticket buyers and money rather than people. And
yeah,
you've got, as county clubs, you've got to see people. And when the people arrive at your club, they need to feel like it's their club. And I don't think clubs do that enough.
we need to embrace every person in the country. We need to be, every person brings a different delight, a different perspective, a different need, and we have to be more open to these things. We absolutely have to be.
And if the boards are predominantly white, middle class, moneyed
They
people,
don't understand it.
they,
I mean,
they,
I'm sure
and
they're trying.
it's not their fault, is it? They can't relate to it because it's not them.
Also,
You
they've
need.
got their hands tied, and let's face
Yeah.
it, the whole 100 thing. It wasn't as straightforward as some people, everybody says, whatever that terrible phrase, turkeys voting for Christmas. It wasn't as simple as
They
that.
didn't vote for what they got, did they?
No.
When it turned out, Facebook user, if you comment on Facebook, put your name at the end of it, because Facebook for some reason doesn't give me your name. But he or she says the biggest sacrilege that ever happened to English county cricket was getting rid of the Sunday league, played on a Sunday and not every other day of the week. And I believe the ECB, if the ECB had any kahunas or whatever, however you pronounce it, about them, which is doubtful, they would bring the competition back. I mean, that's not going to happen, though, is it? Unfortunately, I don't think. I love the Sunday League. Spike says, I know adding extra teams would mean extra games, but when Anderson and Broad don't play first-class games for 8 weeks in the prime summer weeks, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the big names are missing. If you're a red ball player at the moment, you have a big hole in your summer, don't you? Facebook user says, P.S. Afternoon, James and Annie. Thank you, Facebook user. Ruben's back on. If Indian players can travel hundreds of kilometres for public transport just to go for training from a younger age, why can't young English players do the same? Ruben, I guess it helps if you got 1.4 billion people potentially, though, doesn't it? And there's so many in India. I'm not discrediting what you've just said, Ruben, because you're exactly right. They travel miles, but if in England there are so many other things competing for their attention that people just don't do it. And it's Craig, by the way, Craig, the Lancashire supporter, Craig Tranter, who is the Facebook user. Getting back to the Twitter questions, and this is quite a long one, Annie, I'll get you to talk again in a second. Mark is saying, why do we assume that the lack of talent is the problem of county cricket and too many teams? Surely the problem is below that. Are county pathways working? Are we producing less talent from a small pool for county cricket? Pathways play very little red ball cricket compared to white ball cricket. Is league club cricket producing enough players for county cricket? Do leagues and counties have close links anymore? Are we missing all of that talent? Surely that's a bigger problem than the middle source of county cricket not producing international cricketers. I think that's a very good point, Mark, to be honest, and especially with cricket not being played in the schools anymore, in state schools anyway. We need to create those bonds with local clubs, don't we?
We do. I mean, I can only really comment on Devon perspective. What I find in Devon is that the bigger clubs are sort of taking away from all the smaller clubs, and we're tending to find a big club is fielding or 6 teams or something. Which then can go up to county level, and that is helping. But I do wonder where the red ball element is going in that.
I can remember going to interview Ray Illingworth at his beloved Farsley when he was alive, bless him, and he was marking out the white lines on the boundary edge, and he was cutting the grass because he was in charge of all of that. And when I was interviewing him, we were walking around. He said, "It drives me mad, James." He said, "I watched them play T20 cricket on an evening, and all they want to do is hit sixes. I tell them the grass is there for a reason. You can hit it along the grass, and he's right. At the moment we're encouraging youngsters to play the big hoik over cow corner or paddle sweeps and all of those glamorous shots in inverted commas, but they're not actually learning the forward defensive or how to play a cover drive, are they?
Yeah, you're sounding like an old man, James.
I know.
But yes, absolutely. I mean, that is what's happening with all T20, with the 100, with all of those things. You are encouraging people to do that, and that is what kids want to do.
And that's where you get Zach Crawley playing the big shot outside of the off stump in the 5th over of a test match and getting caught at second slip, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The people would, all the classic batsmen would not be happy these days that are no longer here. The other thing just about league cricket, and this is just a side thing that I find incredibly sad, and it kind of is showing the direction of cricket, is that things like teas are being dropped because people want to get off home early, and I find that a really, really sad thing. And I think you're losing the social aspect of cricket and the real sort of joy and camaraderie of cricket. And I feel that league cricket is becoming more like that. Just a side.
Teas were one of my favourite parts of it when I used to play. Harold John says, thank you for all your questions, by the way, everybody. I love the county game. And will go to see as many games as I can, but I'm not sure how it can survive with small attendances and media attention focusing on the 100. Not sure what the financial solution is. And as you said, Annie, earlier, it has to be a financial solution as well as a sort of structural solution, because money does pay the bills ultimately. But it's quite sad, that, isn't it? When people at Harrow are looking at what they're seeing in front of them and thinking, what is there going to be left for me?
Well, it's interesting that also the media attention thing, people saying nobody goes to county cricket and things, and you kind of get this, and you think, okay, there's a vicious circle here somewhere, that people must surely, if you're bright enough, surely you can see that if it's not being advertised and it's not being celebrated by the people that are in charge, how does it carry on? How does it get popular? There's a simple solution. It really, really needs to be shouted about. When the 100 was on, for example, it was wonderfully advertised by the BBC for Sky, so that every time there was a match on my app, I'd just get this, come and watch the 100, it's just starting, and you don't get that with any other thing, because you don't. When have we ever had free to air TV and Sky TV going along together in a tournament? It just doesn't happen. So there's a lot of advertising that can happen. We've seen it can happen. It just costs a lot.
Tom's been on, and he says, hi, just watching the live stream.
Is it Tom Harrison?
No, it's not Tom Harrison, but you're welcome to messages, Tom, if you are watching. He says, just watching the live stream on Twitter, just wondering what your thoughts would be on rebranding the county championship into a new competition called the Premier / Super League, for example, and change the trophy format, etc. Still have the 18 counties playing first-class cricket and pump loads of money into marketing. Football has a Premier League, Rugby Union has a Premier League, Rugby League has the Super League. Is it time for a new first-class competition, cricket competition in the UK? I've always said to you, Annie, and this is where maybe we differ a little bit, is that I don't mind change. I don't mind a new competition coming in if it's going to actually look like it's going to do something productive and it actually nurtures and protects a little bit what we've already got. And yeah. I don't think necessarily changing the championship. I am actually in favour of the 3x6 structure, 3 divisions of 6. You've got every game means something. You've maybe got a couple less games every summer, but at least as a supporter, you go along knowing that every game actually counts for something, and the players have actually prepared for it properly because they've maybe had a couple of days off, because players never get any time off. The season is so condensed at the moment, it's ridiculous.
Well, we know what that is, James.
I, I mean, I did just to hark back a little bit when I was covering Yorkshire. I can remember going on a trip where we went to Liverpool to watch Yorkshire play Lancashire. We then went down to Worcester for a 1 day game, down to Taunton to your neck of the woods for a championship match, and then across the Hove for another 4 day game. So that was 12, 13, about, I think it was about 17 or 18 days we were on the road. But what spectators don't see is that there's might be a couple of days off between fixtures, but you're traveling one of those days. And as a member of the media, you're writing your previews or your pieces, or as a player, you may be having a day off, a well-earned day off, or you're in the nets practicing. You never really get time in the championship at the moment. Jason Gillespie said this to me years ago. In the Sheffield Shield, you get time off. If you're facing Shane Warne next week, you can get onto the bowling machine and face a leg spin or get a local leg spinner to give you a bit of a test. In the championship, you literally hop off one game into another, don't you?
Yeah, but what does Jason also say about the championship?
That it's the best place in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a reason for that. And he's not the only overseas player I've talked to that have said that. So many people have said that, and I think we really, really need to shout about it more. We need to shout about it. We need to protect it. We need to love it, and we need to say it is bloody important.
What you just said there, I think, is the key to this. If the ECB don't look like they love it, how can they expect anybody else to love it?
Yeah. You can't run down something that you are actually, governors of, and expect other people to like it. Yeah. How many times do people say one man and his dog? It doesn't happen. I'm sorry. No dogs are allowed in lots of grounds for a start.
yeah, that one man's waiting outside, waiting for his. Yeah, he can't bring his dog in. But I mean, I made sure when I put a picture on Twitter under a comment the other day that I put a picture of Scarborough full, because you get games in the championship where it is freezing cold and there's very few people there, but you get games where it's not necessarily packed to the rafters at a test ground. I mean, that's one thing, Annie, I always think with obviously test grounds want income, but I sometimes I sometimes think that Headingley and Law, well, not necessarily Lords, but because Lords is special, isn't it? But the test grounds are the wrong places to play championship cricket, because if you've got 3,000 people in a test ground, it feels empty. If you've got three or 4,000 people in Scarborough, it's buzzing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And this is another big thing. It's hard work to put on a cricket festival or have festival grounds. But it's wonderful. It makes such a brilliant experience for kids, for adults, for everybody. It is a delight, and it really needs to try and happen more. I'm really sad that it doesn't happen in Taunton anymore, for example. I love the ground at Taunton, but how wonderful to have a festival. Cheltenham is a delight.
Well, that's the first cricket I ever saw. Was my grandma used to take me down to Canterbury for the festival there, and it was 3-day cricket at the time, and you got a 3-day match, a Sunday league game, and a 3-day match. You got to see two
And
counties.
how much did you love it? How important was it?
Absolutely huge. I can still smell it. I can still that first time I walked into that ground, I can still smell it. I can still see it. I can still live it if I shut my eyes. It's special. Yeah. Those are special memories, and that's what we should be giving kids now. Special memories.
Yep.
It's One final question. If it was down to you, Annie, and you were doing this review, and you were
God.
what would your solution be? What if there is a solution required? How would you see the summers moving forward?
Yeah, it's a really, 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 really difficult question, because, of course, I would drop the 100. I think we've got a fantastic, fantastic competition in the T20 Blast, and I think we really need to make that bigger and celebrate that more, get that on TV. Yep.
And just before you finish your answer, the T20 Blast is crucial, not just for all of the 18 counties, but for the likes of Leicestershire, Northampton, these smaller counties that we're talking about. The revenue they get from the Blast is massive for them. It keeps them afloat.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and also there's no reason why that can't be televised. And we've talked about it before, doing a Premier League of that. Andy Nash was supposed to be on with us, wasn't he? And he's one of the things we've talked about, or he's talked to me about, was maybe align the championship Division 1 with the T20 Blast and get that on TV as a Premier League.
I
Was,
always used to say that with the 50 over. I always thought that, you know, if say you're in Yorkshire and you're travelling down to Glamorgan for a 4-day match, draw the groups or whatever the same way as the championship, so that you add on the 50 over maybe the day before the championship starts or the day after the championship, so that supporters go down not necessarily for a festival, but they go down for a few days rather than just one game.
Yeah, there are ways. I mean, and also just start doing things like Sean Jarvis is doing. Think bigger. Think. I want to get a crowd in. I don't care if they pay. I want to get them in. It's like if I work in theatre. If we have an empty auditorium, it's awful. You get people to come in, and you say £5 ticket or free ticket, come in.
Yeah, well, there's so many strands to this, aren't there? I mean, we could go on for hours, and we're going to stop in just a second. But so many strands to this, in terms of coaching, in terms of grassroots cricket, in terms of structures, in terms of the test team, and all the rest of it. I'll tell you one thing, just to round off with: when you see the comments that you get after a disappointing England performance in the test, that fills social media like nothing else. Like nothing else, you know. England,
that's a reactionary country. I mean, I think,
but it's good because people care about Red Bull. There's the streams that we get. People care about Red Bull, and the test. What people fail to realise, I think, too much, is that test team is built on the foundations of the county championship. You can say the county championship doesn't earn any money. Well, it does, because it is forming that test team that earns a huge amount of that revenue that the ECB earns. That is why when people talk about subsidies and almost like charity, that these counties get this money off the ECB, they're earning it because they're providing players for the test team, they're providing players for the Lions, they're providing all sorts of different things. Like when Pakistan came over in COVID, it was Derbyshire they stayed at, the Derbyshire cheap travel lodge or whatever, but they trained at Derby because that ground was there and the facilities there are bloody good. We need to look after all of these things. It's not just a quick answer. All of these strands need looking at, don't they? And making sure they kind of align.
Yeah, absolutely, James.
I am going to let you go, Annie.
I just want to say I'm so excited that the county championship's about to start, and I cannot wait to see everything that unfolds, and cannot wait to support all of the teams, but mostly Somerset.
That's what I put on a tweet last night, actually, after that Yorkshire vote, which actually keeps my club alive, which is good. But it'd be nice to actually get back to watching some cricket, wouldn't it? It'd be nice to actually watch some cricket. And I just feel like at the moment, everything in the world gets me angry. I watch Boris Johnson, I watch cricket and how it's run, and obviously the tragic war in Ukraine and stuff. It'd be nice just to sit there in the sunshine and actually watch the sport we love, wouldn't it?
Yep, too right. And support. I want to watch the team that I genuinely really care about and support more than any other team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and to a lot of people like you, like me, I mean, I'm a supporter of a bigger county. My county probably be okay, but I couldn't care less. I want 18 counties. I want those experiences of going down to Taunton, to New Road, to Canterbury, to wherever, to watch county cricket, because it's special and it needs to be preserved and looked after. As do you, Annie Chave. Make sure you buy County Cricket Matters. There you go. There's the latest. Tell people how they get it, Annie.
Go onto the website, www.countycricketmatters.com, and you can just subscribe, or you can buy one copy. They're cheap as chips, and they are brilliant. They're not just a fanzine, as some people like to keep saying on Twitter.
Does that annoy you?
I don't mind. You can call it a fanzine if they want, but I think it's a little bit more than that.
It's a magazine. There it is. It's a magazine. And if you're struggling to heat your house as well, once you've read it, it actually burns in the fire as well, doesn't it? So all good stuff. I'll tell you, my electricity bill, I paid it last night, and I'm looking forward to paying the future ones. Annie Chave, always good to see you. Thanks everybody out there for.
Thanks for asking me on.
Oh, that's right. That was important. I'll edit that in the edit, and I'll make sure that actually goes together nicely. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everybody. And look after county cricket. Go along this summer and Red Bull cricket. Sit in your county ground, enjoy hopefully some sunshine, enjoy some fantastic cricket. These aren't riff-raff players. These are terrific players. I'll tell you what, they're better than me and you. If you compare them to club cricketers again on my Twitter feed, because the difference when you're up close to a professional cricketer, one of these riff-raff batsmen playing in the nets, they are a class above. That is why when they go back to club cricket, they score a century or take a fifer because they are better. And it is worth watching them. Go along and support your counties, and I'll talk to you again very soon. Thanks again to Annie. And enjoy it. Well, I think that's number 504. 505 will be just around the